Howdy.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee, and this evening we are so lucky. I've known JJ now, not personally. We chatted for the first time this evening, one-on-one, but I've known JJ or about him now for, at least 5 years. We used to chit-chat a lot on Facebook together. But anyhow, this is one of those very first YouTube channels that I subscribed to. So if that gives you any significance, this is the guy that really kind of got me into this. But anyhow, let me introduce JJ Johnson from Reality Survival and ask him to introduce himself to you. So JJ, why don't you take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself?
Sure. So as far as the whole prepping and survival stuff, I started my YouTube channel in 2011, and it was because I started writing a blog and I didn't even realize there was like a, survivalist or prepping community out there really. And I saw a lot of, I'm getting the feedback. Is that my feedback or on your side?
I'm not hearing any at all.
Sorry. Try to see if I can figure out where that's coming from.
Of course, I have tinnitus from 21 years in the Army, so
I do too. Anyway, I'll just keep going. So started the YouTube channel because I just thought there was a lot of not really great information out there. I used to be a SERE instructor for the Air Force from 1996 to 2000. And so I just thought maybe I'd try to share some good information, and started slow, and then it just kind of grew from there. And here we are, 10, 11 years later, and we're almost to 100,000 subscribers. So anybody who's watching, if you can come over and help me get over that little hump, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of giveaways he's giving if we get him over 100,000. So just some really fantastic stuff. It's because of JJ that I got involved with EMP protection. And so, he's even got some deals there, and we'll let you promote that here later on.
Sure.
But we're also, he's also giving some stuff away from EMP protection. So, that'll be on his 100,000 subscriber party, let's call it.
Yeah.
So JJ, when we talk survival, and one of the things you and I were talking before the show, and it's one of my pet peeves when we talk about survivalism, when we talk about prepping or anything else, is people don't get on the same sheet of music. And quite often we'll have confrontations, tit-a-tits or tete-a-tetes or whatever you want to call them, disagreements, because people don't have the same perspective. They don't think of the same scenario. I may be talking financial collapse and you're talking nuclear warfare. And then we talk about priorities of things. We get into a disagreement over that. But then again, even at the same thing, even in the same scenario, quite often there's a timeline. So some things that are critical at the beginning are not as critical at the middle or at the end. And different things have different priorities depending upon where we are in that timeline. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about where you are. What are you prepping for, and how long a duration do you see that going on?
Well, I'd say that I don't really think of my preparedness efforts in any one specific category. I tend to look at it as a broad-based thing, and the primary focus is things that I know will happen or could happen in my area. So weather-related events, power outages, like just the basic kind of things, job loss, like just the things that are very likely. And what I have learned, and what I learned as a SERE instructor a long time ago, is that there are basically 8 basic needs that we have for, the kind of the commonality for survival. And you can throw a 9th one on there, which is like the admin section, because we got to make sure our paperwork's squared away. But those 8 basic things, if you get squared away in each one of those categories, you'll find yourself a lot more able to deal with almost any situation that comes at you. So you can handle a bigger variety of situations, I guess, and so that's kind of the philosophy that I've kind of gone with is just trying to, when I reevaluate, where I'm at in each category. If I'm lower on one of them, maybe water purification or whatever, then I'll try to beef that up. And I just try to keep those categories kind of across the board, as good as I can.
So if we take a look at those 8 broad categories, and so we can throw a whole bunch of things in there. We can talk about cyber warfare, EMP, CME, nuclear warfare, civil disorder, whatever the case might be. It appears to me, and I want to get your point of view on this, that there are some commonalities that kind of cross over all of those events. It doesn't matter what it is. For you, probably having cross-country skis is more important than it is for me. But depending upon weather. But if we take a look at it, can you come up with a theory, or can you come up with a list of those things that appear to be most common across all of the major threats that we see today?
Yeah, so let's see if I can. I was going to see if I can find my list. I'll just try to do it as best I can off memory. So, first one is sustenance, right? So that's food and water, basics, of pretty much all survival. Then you've got, is that what you're talking about? Talking about the categories?
Yep.
Okay.
You got it. You're spot on.
So then you're gonna take a look at health and wellness. Just as far as first aid kit, spiritual wellness, emotional well-being. All that kind of stuff. That's all kind of one category as far as health and wellness goes. Then you have security. So home security, self-defense, all that kind of stuff. Taking care of those issues. Then you've got communication, because you've got to be able, and communication and intel is kind of one category, because you have to be able to figure out what's going on around you so that you can be ready to react for it. Let's see what else we got there. Communication, travel is another category there. So you got to be able to get from point A to point B so that you can get resources and all that kind of stuff. What's that? 5. We've got admin, which is talking about like your will and last testament, just all of your paperwork for insurance and different things like that, making sure that if you have a catastrophe in your family, you can pass those along to everybody else. And coming up with a blank on the other ones right now. Maybe you can help me out.
No, I think you're doing fine, because I think
there's some other ones,
when I take a look at it, the one thing that goes across all the borders is food. So talking about food, water, shelter, first aid, some sort of security system, of course, communications and intelligence as well, and
power generation, and then the personal protection, as well,
yeah. So and power generation, that's kind of, we can see that as being fleeting in a sense, simply because it's only if you need refrigeration or some sort of electrical medical device that I say that power is going to be that critical to you.
I put them into power and heat generation, or the category that I put together. So whether that's being able to be as basic as building a fire, or having batteries for a flashlight or something along those lines, all the way up to having solar panels and being completely off the grid kind of thing.
Yeah, it was Fortune's book, One Second After, that when he talks about his daughter passing away because there was a lack of insulin. That really got me, and I decided to get on the ball and get whole house solar power with backup battery and everything else, for the pure simple reason of keeping insulin cool for a family member. So
for sure,
that now of course. Then I had to find out from you that I needed to have EMP protection, because that solar system is highly susceptible. But that's just how things go. So let's talk about food, and tell me kind of how you prioritize acquisition and storage of food.
So I use a layering system, and the reason that I do that is one of the things that I figured out. During the pandemic and all that kind of stuff was that you don't want to have to eat your long-term storage stuff unless you absolutely have to, right? And so the way that I try to think about doing food storage is that your pantry should have at least 3 months worth of stuff in it that you normally eat all the time. And if you had to, you could just eat out of that pantry for 3 months and be fine.
Okay.
Then the next layer is moving to your basic staples. So stuff that you can get from like the LDS online cannery. So, rice, beans, carrots, apples, dehydrated apple, like just the basic kind of like just main staples, flour, hard wheat, if you want to go that way. I mean, all those kinds of things. Then I look at doing like freeze-dried buckets and dehydrated buckets, and try to have at least a couple of those per person in the house. And then you can also add in MREs as well on another layer. And the way that I think about using that in my own head anyway is if a situation were to happen that was kind of like a bang, the thing started right now, then I'm going to start layering in those staples as early as possible. So I'm going to start adding in rice and adding in beans and all that kind of stuff as I'm going through my normal pantry. And the reason you want to do that is so that you slowly acclimate your system towards being able to consume a lot of rice and beans, because it isn't as easy digestively as a lot of people think that it is to make a complete switch, to all the food that you're used to just eating, kind of the bare bones essentials. And so if you make that transition over a period of months, that does a few things for you. It allows your pantry and the flavors and foods that you're used to last a lot longer. And so it doesn't seem like it's such a dire situation, because you're still getting to eat the things that you want. And when you're in a survival situation, food is a very important emotional well-being kind of thing. I tell you, I mean, I learned that in survival school. When you don't have the food that you want to have and you're hungry and you got to eat garbage, it ain't no fun, and it definitely doesn't help your positive mental attitude.
I don't know if I can say it or not, but being forced to eat green rice under less than ideal lighting conditions, and you think there's bugs in it too.
Sure.
That was quite an experience.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Let me stop here and go back and welcome some of these people that have shown up here and acknowledge some of these fantastic people who are following us here this evening. So let me go up here. I know that there was a couple. Okay, so we started off with South Florida DCL. Welcome. Alpine Preparedness. I still have half a cup here for you. Great video on coffee making in the cold tundra that just came out from her. JJ's DIY Homestead, welcome. Little Lone Prepper, welcome. Then we've got Chrome Dome Omega. Well, that sounds, I was talking to my wife today, and my father's head, he died at 88, never turned perfectly gray. My Uncle Harry, who died younger, was bald from the tops of his ears up, but what was below was all gray. So I'm waiting to find out. I'm 70 now, so what will happen? Will I thin out more? Will that turn gray? What's going to happen? I don't know. So I'm in the same situation. Let me see here. Gosh, where are we? Hello, Tofu, one of my moderators. Welcome. Always good to see you, Jay Creature. Thank you for being here. Scrapper, good evening and welcome. Jay Creature again. USMC 935, fantastic. Glad you could make it. Sean Penrod, welcome and good evening. Scrapper, and let me see, Navigating the Nonsense. Oh, you're back. Yes, this is one of my favorites. I think she has been on your channel as well, JJ. She used to be called Apartment Prepper.
Oh, okay.
And she's out of Utah, but so happy to have you back, Navigating the Nonsense. So glad to see you. And then we get down here, and let me see if there's anybody else. Dove Season 91, welcome. and Stray Kitten. Gosh, wow, all you fantastic people. Thank you so much for being here. Jay Creature, thank you for that. But let me, so I put the link for the LDS, and this is their purchase sheet. This is what I use for my inventory sheet. So we're very lucky here, just around us here in the Round Rock area of Texas. We have a Provident Living Center, which is their store. There are 48 stores throughout the U.S. That link I gave you is to the main page, and that's in the comments here, of the LDS Provident Living Center. So you can look to see if there's a store near you. And if there's not, then you can order online.
It's definitely the cheapest place to get your staples, I think.
It's some of the best. What I did, and this was for the last 10 years, I would stop by once a month and I'd get one case. And what I did was I started out getting one case, and I would get flour, and then at that time, refried beans. They don't have refried beans anymore. They just have pinto beans. But flour and pinto beans or refried beans, and then occasionally I get rice or onions. But they have so many different things. I'd try to fill up a full case, and I would get one case a month, so 12 cases a year for the last 10 years. And my wife says I can't buy any more because there's no space left in the house unless we start moving stuff into the living room. But I mean, it's just. Let me give you a couple ideas as the prices here. So a number 10 can of apples is $9.58, pinto beans $7.49, carrots $8.92, flour $5.38, instant oats is $5.03, mashed potatoes $7.28, number 10 can of rice is $7.50. What else? Gosh. I gave you flour at $5.38. So, I mean, it's great. They do a fantastic job. It's one of the best sources, and it's one of the most inexpensive sources of long-term storage you can have. So sorry for the interruption, JJ.
No, it's perfect. That's great information
for them. So what else do you do as far as food storage?
Well, like I said, with the buckets and stuff like that, I think those things are good to have. And the reason that I like those is because they're primarily made up of all the staples, but you get different flavor profiles. So you get, and what I've always recommended to people is buy from a variety of different manufacturers. And you do that because you don't want to, like, some people will go out and just buy like a year's supply from one person or whatever, or from one company. And I don't think that's really a great idea, because then you've got just one flavor profile, one menu, and if you get them from a bunch of different people, then you get a lot of different tastes and flavors and all that kind of stuff. And food boredom is a real psychological condition that people actually die from. And a lot of people disagree with me when I put out this video talking about this, but it's an actual thing. You can have food to eat, but if it's the same food over and over time, your stomach will start to shrink. You'll eat less and less and less, and then your immune system starts to degrade, and then disease will catch on, and then you die. And this happens in refugee camps all the time, because these refugees basically are fed the same food over and over. And so, and not too terribly long ago, they started changing it up from rice and beans and stuff like that into, these different kinds of MRE style of meals, because that's what was happening. People, they couldn't make themselves eat it anymore because they found it so awful. And you would think, a starving person's going to eat it no matter what. You'll eat a little bit of it, but then you get to a certain point, you can start to actually get sick, where the taste of it just makes you just nauseous. And so it's a strange concept to think about, but you can take a look at it. It happens in refugee camps. So it's important to have a wide variety of different flavors.
Linda and Dragon Slayer, welcome, and don't worry about it. We're glad that you're here. So as long as you're here to catch this, I think there's a lot of good information here from JJ. So some of my favorites, I just did a video on trying to put together meals, because the way I plan my food storage is basically around meals. So like I said, if I could get free-fried beans and onions and cheese and flour, I can make a bean burrito.
Sure. Yeah.
And, and so that I could have a bean burrito every third or fourth day. That's fine.
Hmm.
But then, of course, I would want other things. So I go to other places like Thrive Life, Emergency Essentials, Freeze Dried Wholesalers.
Yep.
Algerson Farms has got some
Hmm.
fantastic stuff. But there's a lot of great providers out there. I think you bring up a very good idea that you need to have a plethora. One of the things I would like to caution everybody against, and I'll get your opinion on this as well, JJ,
Sure.
is I am opposed to companies that want to sell you 6 month or 1 year or 2 year deals, a couple $1,000s, and it's going to be a pallet of food delivered to your door. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, they're going to sell it to you based on the number of servings. Take a look at what those actual servings are. Because a lot of them are going to have a high concentration of oatmeal, of potato soup,
Right.
broccoli cheese soup,
Yeah.
cream of wheat, milk, etc. And number two, and this is my personal opinion, okay? I don't have anything to prove this because I've never purchased one and tasted it. But I would be suspect as to the taste. Are they really putting that much effort into the taste? Because I think they think that you aren't going to open that stuff up until you need it. And when you need it, it's going to be when you can't contact them anymore. So there's not going to be anybody to complain to. So, I am highly suspicious of buying a year's worth of food unless they let me taste it ahead of time. JJ, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a good thought process. And the other thing is too is if you had some spoilage or bad food and it was all produced from the same lot, then you could have a higher degree of spoilage as well. So if you're getting it from multiple companies, then you're less chance that that's going to happen. I think that nutrient survival food that you have behind you there is probably some of the best tasting stuff that I have tried. Have you tried it?
I wholeheartedly agree.
It's really good. I mean, I am an affiliate with them. I'm a fairly new, recent affiliate with them. So just to be full disclosure there, but I think that it tastes every bit as good as Mountain House stuff does. Maybe even a little better because it's not as salty.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really good stuff. Now it is expensive, but I tell you what, having a handful of those cans around to be able to mix in with some other stuff would definitely make things a lot easier, I think. I don't know.
I really like the homestyle scramble. And so what I do
Yeah.
is when I tasted the homestyle scramble was I took, because it's meatless, all of the nutrient survival products are meatless, but we took the homestyle scramble and mixed it with a little bitty can of diced ham that I got at Walmart. And with that little bitty can of diced ham and the homestyle scramble, you could say that it's a mountain man breakfast. You could say that it's
Yeah.
Bauernfrühstück, which is the German farmer's breakfast.
It's very hearty.
But I mean, it's got everything. You've got cheese, peppers, onions, eggs.
Mhm.
It's a very, very, very hearty breakfast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had any bad experiences with food? And
Trying to think. I mean, I can't really think of anything that I thought was terrible. I think if I had to pick one manufacturer that is my least favorite, it would probably be Wise.
I would
Um,
agree there.
yeah, and it's not that it's terrible food or anything. It's just that if you mix it the way that they mix it and cook it the way that they recommend, it just never really comes out right. Or at least it hadn't for me, the like the chili mac and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty watery, and the ratios that they recommend and stuff, and you can fix that by modifying the amounts and everything. But so I would say they're probably my least favorite, but and they're really bad on the serving stuff too. Like all the companies play the serving game, trying to figure out how much this and that and everything. I think probably the best on the servings that I'm aware of is Augustin. They have the QSS the QSS survival rating or whatever, and it's basically 2,000 calories per meal as one meal. You know what I mean? And so they were probably the most transparent, I would think. The other one that was pretty good on that was Came in a really big, like 7 or 8 gallon bucket. What was the name of that company? I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were pretty good too.
There used to be rainy day, or well, they still are. Rainy Day Foods used to sell the big 5 gallon buckets of all different kinds of stuff, primarily soups and stews and stuff like that.
I can't remember what the name of it. It'll come to me as we're sitting here, probably.
They were the original LDS supplier, was Rainy Day Foods
Oh, okay.
from a long time ago. Give
Gotcha.
my age away. But one of the things I would say is stock up on stuff that's easy and that is inexpensive for you right now. I think that bulking up on food is going to be pretty important. Let me share with you one of my biggest mistakes, and then we'll see if JJ is willing to share any of his mistakes. But
Sure.
one of my biggest mistakes was not investing originally in high quality, heavy duty shelving. I bought some of that, $80 shelving unit at Sam's and loaded it up with canned goods, and it didn't even last one night. I woke up the next morning and everything was on the floor. So as you're doing this, make sure, number one, that you're investing in high quality shelving, and number two, plan your pantry, your preparedness pantry, so that you're putting the short end of the shelves against the wall and not the long end. Because if you put the short end against the wall, then you can put all your new stuff in the back more easily, so that you're constantly rotating your stock and keeping it as fresh as possible. JJ, your thoughts?
I think that's good. One of my biggest mistakes that I've made in regards to food was not putting out poison for rats and mice prior to getting all the stuff, down there and everything like that. Like
Great idea.
We moved in and there was no sign of rodents or anything when we moved in. And then of course that was in the summertime. Well, in the wintertime, all the mice like to come in if they can. Right.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have any poison out. And so I ended up having some stuff get, where the rats got into it, or they were mice, not rats, but like field mice. So one of the things that I've started doing since then is I put out the poison ahead of time. So you go around to all the little potential entry points and places where they might be and put out the poison traps. And that way they'll get to that bait before they get to your stuff and then, go out and die. And it's amazing what a lot of people don't understand about mice is they're climbers. So if you're thinking about only putting it down low, that's not the most common avenue of approach for a mouse, especially if it's in your basement. They very often will crawl along the tops of the walls and in the joists and all that kind of stuff up there, the floor joists above you. So you want to think about looking high as well, because they are prolific climbers.
Well, one of the things we call mice here in Central Texas is a snake attractor. Because the rattlesnakes like to eat on the mice, and so you want to keep the mice away only so you can keep the snakes away, if nothing else.
You bet.
Somebody asked the question about hard candy, and yes, absolutely essential that you have it. I store butterscotch or butter rum lifesavers, wintergreen lifesavers, the 5 fruit lifesavers. I do one of my favorites, so I can't reach it, are the Necco original candy wafers. They're primarily sugar, and they'll last a long time. Then you've got the little candy mints that are hard, that they last a long time as long as you keep them in an non-aired environment. You want to put them in a bag and take all the air out, consume all the air. But there's all kinds. The Jolly Ranchers, another good one. We used to get Jolly Ranchers in our MREs. So, that was a pretty good one. We were talking earlier about food boredness, and one of the things is the original sea rations. I don't know if you had any of those or not before we switched over to MREs.
No, I've never eaten from them. I've seen them, you know what I mean? Like I've seen them, but we never. I came in '96, so we were into the MREs.
Well, the first sergeant used to put it on the ground and flip it over so you couldn't see the title of the meal on the box, and you had to grab your box. The tuna was a slightly different color, and I could,
Yeah.
if I had first choice, I could get the tuna, 90% of the time. So I lived a very long time off of the tuna sea rats.
That's funny.
But occasionally I'd get the eggs chopped with ham, the green eggs chopped with ham, and all that kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. Let me switch just a little bit. You and I had a conversation a long time ago. We were talking to a goat herder in North Carolina, and the subject was around the value or lack of value of having. And I want to expand the topic just a little bit. The original topic was around precious metals, but
Okay.
let's expand that a little bit to the value or not the value of having cash on hand and precious metals on hand.
So I definitely think that the cash on hand is of prime importance. A lot of people talk about currency collapse and all that kind of stuff, but what they don't realize is that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a while, so having like that's probably if you're going to do one thing, the very first thing to do as a prepper is try to have a couple months worth of expenses in cash in your house. Like you can probably deal with a lot of problems, if you have a big enough, stash of cash. And I don't think that's the only thing you should do. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not saying, cut corners and just go that route. But I think that's an important one. As far as gold and silver and precious metals and that kind of thing, normally the advice that I give people is if you have all of your 9 categories that we were talking about earlier kind of pretty well squared away, then I think it makes sense to put, a portion of your earnings and savings and that kind of thing into gold and precious metals. I don't envision it being used in the way that like James Wesley Rawls did in the book Patriots. His vision was that junk silver was going to become the currency and people were going to use it and all that kind of thing. I don't think there's enough junk silver in circulation to become a medium of exchange. Personally, I don't think that's a very realistic thing. But precious metals have always had value, and so they're probably going to continue to have value to some degree. The question is like you were saying when we were talking earlier, what's the situation? If it's an economic issue, then it's probably going to have a little bit more value than if it was a situation where the lights are out and it's a grid down situation everywhere and there's just mass panic everywhere, So I think it just depends on what you're dealing with, probably.
I foresee, we talk quite a bit. There's been a lot of discussion among preppers now, gosh, for at least a decade, about the barter element, having things for barter and everybody has their list of the 25 best things to barter and everything else. And, they continue to talk about that. And the way I see it is the chances now, remember at this time, 98% of the population is not preparing. Now we can say maybe 94% of the population is not preparing. We got maybe 6-7%. I think we've had a wake up in the last 2 years. We've got more people preparing. But if let's be generous and say 90% of the population is not prepared, and you have something to barter, what are the odds of you walking into somebody who's going to have what you want or need, and that they want or need what you have in trade for it? I may have what they want, but they certainly, if they're not prepared, don't have what I want. So I don't think that one-on-one barter is going to be as effective or as efficient as a lot of people portray it to be. What I think is probably going to happen is we're going to develop into markets. So you're going to see basically stylized black markets or farmers markets or what do they call it on Saturdays when you
farmers market.
Yeah. And so I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's going to be a safer deal for everybody. And I think that's where the value of either a currency or of a precious metal is going to be more valuable as a common means of trade among a whole bunch of vendors and or traders. Am I too far off on that in your opinion there, JJ?
I think you're 75% accurate. So that just, my view of it is, and what I've seen in kind of third world countries that I've been deployed to and that kind of thing, is that you're correct about the markets, right? That is 100% true. When a currency goes bad, and really, I mean, even in third world countries before that, local markets are the heart of a tribal civilization. I mean, that's just the way they live. I have seen barter on a pretty wide scale, though, in those markets. It's pretty common if you watch it and you pay attention to what they're doing. Now, if they have a functional currency still, then they'll use that currency and that kind of thing as well. But it is pretty common to see barter in markets. And I've seen more than one time. I've seen little Afghani kids bringing their goats, in into the market and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, and so I tend to think that barter will probably be pretty widely used. It'll probably be more used in the service area than exchanging individual goods. So like if I know how to fix a car, hey, I'll fix your car if you can hook me up with whatever, some 22 ammo or something like that. That kind of an exchange is probably going to be more frequent than like I'll give you 4 eggs for 6 cups of flour or whatever. That probably won't be as common. But barter as a whole, I think, will probably be used. The problem, I think, with gold and silver in markets is if it's in small enough denominations to be usable, then it could be used that way. It depends on, like, cutting up a gold coin. That ain't going to be no fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this gold coin's worth a couple grand and you want to clip some corners off of it or something, that ain't going to be any fun for anybody.
There's no way I would have a piece of gold bigger than, say, 1/10 of an ounce.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it if you wanted to do that. Is keep them small, so that the denominations make sense for because you don't want to have to trade for like a horse, or something like that. So
yeah, let's Manny. There, I would never want to trade silver for silver. But here's the scenario. Okay, I desperately need an antibiotic. I've run out of antibiotics, and you don't have an antibiotic, but who is a stray kitten above you does have antibiotics. Okay. But stray kitten needs ammunition for her antibiotics. You've got ammunition and I don't. So we get into this thing now to where I don't have what she wants, but she has what I want. And so we're going to have this convoluted, complicated trading of things among us so that everybody gets what they want at somebody else's barter, whatever. And so that's when I talk about markets, that's where I'm talking about having that kind of an exchange. So silver may not be what you want, but it may be what the other person wants who has what you want, so that you can give me what I want. So we're going to have this large convoluted trade. And the way that has been handled in the past, in history, from Egypt forward, is through either cash, some sort of a currency system, or some sort of a precious metal and I hate to think of silver and gold as barter. Let's take that out. When I talk cash, as far as silver and gold, I'm talking a purchase, because that is the original money. So in my opinion, gold and silver is a money and going to be used to purchase things and not going to be used to barter. To take what JJ's talking about, one of the things that I have is I'm 70. And so, when I run out of water or when I run out of firewood, I'm going to need somebody to go get some firewood for me. I'm going to need somebody to walk down to the river half a mile away and get some water for me. Either that, I'm going to do it myself. Well, if I do it myself, who's guarding my home while I'm gone? And so Now we get into where we're going to be employing people. So the barter there might be, hey, if you go get me 10 gallons of water, I'll feed your family for the day. And so that's where we're talking about the bartering of services, unless I'm thinking something totally different from you, JJ.
No, I think that's pretty applicable. I tend to believe that ammo would probably be more universal than gold or silver, but I do think that some medium of exchange will pop up in certain places, and it's hard to imagine exactly, for sure what that will be, but we've always done it that way. Like you're saying, it's a pretty time tested kind of thing. But ammo would probably be, I would tend to think, if we devolved into a situation where society has collapsed at large, which is a really low probability in my opinion. But if we got that crazy, I think ammo would be one of the universal things that people would be looking for, probably. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
And I was really off base on that one, because before the cough and subsequent actions taken for it, I was thinking that there would always be the standard caliber hunting ammunition, that would always be around 30-30, 270, 30-06,
Yeah.
6mm, 7mm.
Sure.
And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
The only thing you could find for those 2 years was NATO standard. And, that makes sense that they're going to be producing for the military. So that's what you want to have as far as your primary.
That's almost exclusively all the calibers that I keep personally is NATO rounds, plus 22 and 12 gauge.
Yeah.
But,
We've got a question here from Jay Creature. JJ, do you prep alcohol? I do both hard and dark bottled beer. I'm not a frequent drinker, but I could be if I wanted to.
I don't keep a whole lot of alcohol around. I enjoy an occasional margarita and that kind of thing. But it hasn't been something that I've added to my preps in mass or anything like that. We have a few bottles here just to kind of drink socially and that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think that would also the vice kind of issues, like, cigarettes and alcohol and trading sex. I mean, honestly, if you're getting down to those kind of things, would also be pretty high on the list of things that people are seeking. But it's never been something that I've, really piled up too much or anything like that. Kind of just your normal amount or whatever.
I have some of the little airplane bottles, if you will. I've got one case of those, various tasting things. I figured that might be something of value. But when we talk to vices, only 18% of the population smokes. So the chances of finding somebody who wants your tobacco in exchange for what they have, it's going to be 1 out of 5. The odds there. That's not going to be too good. We have a question on your thoughts on UPMA, United Precious Metals Association.
I don't know about them.
I don't know anything about them either. I will tell you, I was a member of Carrot Bars, and it was a German company, and you could put in like $25 a month, and then you bought in. As a matter of fact, I have one here. You bought, keep it in my wallet, but you bought in 1 gram increments. And so let me see if I can find it. But you bought in 1 gram increments, and so you would put in $25. They buy it at the current market price, and then after they bought it at the current market price, you could pay to have it shipped to you from Germany. So this is what it looks like. This is 1 gram, or 1/31st of an ounce. And but I figured, well, I'd save myself a little bit of shipping costs, so I waited until I had almost a full ounce. I had 30 grams to be shipped to me, and I'll be doggone if the company didn't go under. So they still owe me 30 grams of gold and $250 in cash. So anytime you're talking about dealing in currencies or dealing in precious metals overseas or in a multi-level marketing type of a thing, be highly suspicious.
I had a company try to get me to, be an affiliate with them or a brand ambassador or whatever recently. And their whole thing is that they converted 401ks and TSP plans and stuff like that over to gold. They did a rollover to gold or whatever. And I started asking them a list of questions and I was like, yeah, sorry, man, you're just not answering these sufficiently enough for me to be comfortable with it, and it's like, do you get to keep the gold at your house? And they're like, no, yeah, it's in a secure vault in California or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, not going that route, man. I have no interest in this whatsoever. If you can't physically have the gold in your possession, I definitely would stay away from it.
And which is exactly the reason why I won't do any kind of a Bitcoin or anything like that. I'm afraid that with an EMP or a CME, there goes everything you have because it's all digital, It's all electronically stored.
Yeah. Well, all of our currency will be digital here soon. So
well, we hope not, but it appears we're going that way. So Dragon Slayer says, I don't buy gold and silver simply because I can't afford it. I bought gold jewelry from folks who needed money and we both made out. I pay more than a pawn shop. True. And so if you have a reputable dealer there in your hometown, I've been dealing with Austin's finest gold and coin with oh gosh, now his name's going to forget me. James Arnold, now for 20 years. So, I get, he does very good with me. As a matter of fact, the other person that buys from him is Ronan. And Ronan owns the gas mask company here in
Mirror Safety.
Yeah.
Mirror Safety. Yeah.
Mirror Safety. Yeah. So, Ronan buys from him as well. So let's now talk about defensive things for real quick. Your preferences as far as a caliber for long rifle, short rifle, and for personal defense?
Depends on the mission. Depends on what you want to do. Right. I mean,
let's just say home defense.
Yeah. So for home defense, my general answer for most people for home defense is a 9mm handgun. And the reason that I say that is because if somebody's banging on your door at 3 a.m. in the morning, it's probably the police. First off, the most likely person to do that is going to be a police officer. And if you answer the door with a shotgun or an AR-15, you're not going to like how that ends up very well, probably. And they might not either, right? That's just a bad situation to get into. If you have the ability to, tuck it into your belt, your waistband, or something like that, you pull your pants on and you can kind of tuck it into your pants or something, then that situation is probably going to be a little bit better, right? Because you can keep it concealed, you can answer the door, you can deal with whatever you got to deal with, and you can let them know, hey, officer, I'm gonna place my firearm over here so that we can finish this conversation, whatever. That doesn't really address your question of what would I use if something goes bump in the night and I believe somebody's in my house. So in that situation, I would probably grab my 12 gauge. And it's really just because nothing says hello like a good load of double-aught buck, Yep. And it's fairly effective at putting people down. So that would probably be my go-to. That's what's in my safe, close to my bed. But if it's going to deal with somebody that's outside the home or knocking on my door, then I'm probably going to go with a 9mm. So that's kind of where I'm at.
When I was at Goodfellow Air Force Base back in, the early 80s, the apartment that I was in, one of the other instructors got me this apartment, and I was upstairs next doors to a prostitute. And so it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and a drunk left her apartment and had to have his hand on the wall as he walked down the hall. And of course, there was a depression there where my window pane was. And he stumbled into it and crashed through the window, my living room window, into my living room. And at that time, I had a Ruger 357. And nothing like pointing a 357, and I had snake shot for the first 2 rounds, but a snake shot. He decided to exit the premises very quickly. But
Yeah.
but then again, it took me a while to get that window replaced.
Yeah.
So anyhow, on that subject, I think JJ and I are pretty much in alignment on this. If you're going to get something other than 22 long rifle and 12 gauge, which are both critical to have, anything else, whether it be a handgun or a long gun, get yourself NATO caliber. Because the one thing I found out over the course of the last 3 years, I couldn't go hunting for the last 2 years because my preferred hunting rifle is a 30-30, and I could not find ammunition for the last 2 years at all. I almost got into reloading just so I could go. Okay, let me do a quickie here, and then I also want to make sure you all have your opportunity to ask JJ questions. So let me go through a real rapid questionnaire here for him, just about 13 or 14 questions. And after we do the rapid fire, then I want to see a whole bunch of great questions from you all. So favorite fiction prepping book, JJ?
Fiction, I'm going to probably say The Patriots by James Wesley Rawls. I think he did probably the best job of laying out a lot of solid, good information for the most part. My buddy from survival school, John Hollerman, he also wrote the EMP series, Equipping Modern Patriots, and that's a pretty good series as well.
So anyhow, The Patriot, I do have an extra copy of it, brand new, that we're going to be giving away once we get over 5,000. So
cool.
If you want to get a chance at getting a copy of that, and that's part of a trilogy. That's the first of 3 books that Rawls wrote. Remember that tomorrow night we are doing part 2. Where's my book? I don't know where my book is. Doggone, there it is. Don't forget that tomorrow night for our nonfiction prepping book club, we're doing Disaster Preparedness, which is by another fiction series author, Dr. Bradley, and he's the EMP expert from NASA. So what's your favorite nonfiction prepping book while we're on that subject?
Probably the most useful one to have in your library would be Where There's No Doctor. That is a really good book that talks about field medicine and what to do when there's no surgeons or hospitals and those kinds of things. And I would say that for most people that would probably be probably one of the more important books, because dealing with medical issues is going to be far more common than anything else. That's going to kill way more people, medical related issues, disease, bacteria, viruses, those kinds of things. So having a good medical book would probably be the most useful.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Your favorite fiction prepping movie?
I think one of the most realistic ones, and I hate the fact that this actress or actor or whatever is in it, but the movie itself I think was probably really well done. It's called Into the Forest, and it has Ellen Page in it, or Elliot Page, whatever. It was when she was a female, whatever. So I don't care for her at all as an actress at all, but the movie was very well done and very realistic and gritty, and I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Favorite TV series or TV movie?
Jericho.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that one. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's got to be the best. What's your favorite folding knife?
I've been carrying this little Kershaw grid for the last month or so, and it's a pretty good little knife. I'm going to be giving away a couple of them over on my Substack as well. So if you guys want to head over there, you can get one of those.
Favorite fixed blade?
I had, when I was a survival instructor, I had this it's a Spanish fixed blade called Muela, and it's the Muela Mirage. I believe it was Spanish, and it was awesome. It was cheap. It was a cheap old knife, but I beat the hell out of that thing. I mean, like I can't tell you how many split wood fires I beat with it, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going. I think it was like a cheap 440 stainless steel or something. It wasn't even a high quality knife,
Yeah.
but man, it lasted forever. I still have it. It's still going. It's an amazing knife.
I've got a fantastic bushcrafting knife, and oh gosh, what I forget the name of it now, but it cost me $220. But
Oh,
around the house, the one I seem to grab all the time is a cheapo, less than $50 Condor bush lore,
yeah,
and
that's a
it's
good knife.
A2 tool steel. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, it's just
Mhm.
a little spot of rust, a little bit of steel wool, and some oil on it. It's taken care of.
Yeah, I've got one of those. Those are good knives.
What's your best water purifier?
I'm going to give you a few. So the New Aqua 7-stage reverse osmosis filter for your house. And the reason I like those is because if it's the pump style, which is what I have because I have a well, and you have a water source like a bucket or whatever the case may be, you can use that to purify water to drink in an SHTF situation, right? As long as you can produce the power that you need for the pump and all that kind of stuff, you can make a system to where you can purify through an RO filter a large quantity of water.
Mhm.
The next thing is a portawell. And a portawell is basically a big pump with a series of filters on it for getting water like out of a pond or something along those lines. Because people don't understand how much water you're going to really need if it was a true grid down kind of situation, right? To maintain any sort of normalcy, you really, really have to have a lot of water. And you're 5 to 8 gallons per person per day in your house. That's a lot. And then on the smallest scale for filters, I would say a Katadyn Pocket is probably the best filter, the best manufactured filter out there. It's really, really good.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm kind of averse to is something like the survival straw or anything like that, where you have to get down with your face very close to the water
Those are
and
awful.
suck it through the straw. I don't like that idea. So my go-to is a Survivor Pro,
Okay.
Survivor Filter Pro, and it has an intake pump, and then it has an output tube,
Yeah.
and it's got a pump and everything else. And
Yeah.
for the very reason you're talking about, I don't want to get my face close to contaminated water.
Yeah. That,
Which
oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
just, that, those straws are a recipe for disaster. If that's your answer for water purification, you're not thinking appropriately.
Yeah. Favorite multi-tool, or if you have one.
Probably the Leatherman CS4 juice. That's what I carry every day in my pocket. Let's see if I can dig it out in here somewhere. Nope, wait. There it is. That's just a little guy. It's just a little one, but I carry it every day. I use it all the time, and I've had it for years, and it just works. It just keeps working.
Amen.
Yeah.
So which do you prefer, constitutional or silver rounds and bars?
I don't even know. It's not something that I focus too much on. I don't have much silver or gold. I have a few things, but it's so little that it's honestly not even worth talking about in my take.
So
Because
you don't have rolls of mercury dimes like James Wesley Rawls, huh?
no,
No.
I had some for a while, and the more I thought about it, I just didn't think that it would be, that worthwhile. I spent much more of my money in ammunition and different things like that. So
Okay.
not so much on the gold and silver.
What's the most overlooked prepping skill that you wish people would pay more attention to?
Training in general. Most people don't get out and actually try to do things as much. They consume information, they watch stuff, they read stuff, but they don't actually go out in bad conditions and hook up your generator or start a fire or you name it. Go gather water. Do you know where the nearest water source is to your house? And have you walked there and got 5 gallons worth of water and then walked back to see what that process is like?
And bought a wagon as a result.
Yeah, I mean that's
Like a garden
training.
wagon.
Yeah. And so that could be, maybe it's first aid training, learn how to use your first aid kit and your trauma kit. Maybe it's going out and shooting, so that you're proficient with your firearm. If you've never been to a firearms training class, you really, really should, because you will learn, even if you've been shooting your entire lifetime, I guarantee you're going to learn things that you didn't know you were doing wrong, and then other things that you didn't know were out there. So I highly encourage folks to get out and do training.
And I want to emphasize what he's talking about there, is because you've got to get out there enough to where it becomes instinctive to you. Because the minute you get shot at, if you haven't developed instincts, then you're going to freeze. And you want those instincts to take over. And that only comes through repetitive training.
And force on force training
over and over again, huh?
When it comes to firearms training, force on force training is the best you can do, where you use simunitions and that kind of thing. That actually, if you can get into those classes, that is real time feedback. You learn, is this cover working or not working? You know what I mean? Because and that kind of feedback is very, very valuable, and it's the closest thing that you can get to actually engaging in real firearms firefights without actually doing it. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things I learned the hard way was Snowmageddon here in Central Texas back in the spring of 21. I'm sorry, the winter of 21. And I thought I had it all planned out. This was before I had whole house solar and everything else. And I thought, well, I've got a solar system. I've got a 5 kW generator. I'll just, start it up in the backyard, no problem. And then all of a sudden I realized that I had to bring the cord in through a door at -7 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got a choice. You can either take a real fire hazard and slam the door shut or the window shut on that extension cord and take a chance of shorting it out with the pressure on the cable, or you have to figure out how you can put some sort of protective barrier around the door so you can get the cable in. But I fixed that problem, I tell you. But sometimes we think we've got it all figured out, and we really don't.
Yep.
Primarily hunker down or bug out?
Well, I guess it would depend on the situation. And as a general rule, that you're going to bug in until you have to bug out. That's kind of my thought process, because I live where people don't live for the most part. I live in a pretty rural area on purpose. And so, my primary plan is to stay here as long as I can. If I was forced to leave, then I would probably do what you would consider just a tactical retreat, and leave with what I needed to be able to come back shortly thereafter, and pay a surprise visit to whoever it was that made me leave. So, and if I have to go mobile, then I have that option, but I wouldn't do that for very long. I have a family, and people are under the impression that they can throw a backpack on and go live out in the national forest. I was a professional SERE instructor, right, for 4 years. And so I spent a lot of time in the woods and a lot of time learning how to survive in the woods. And one thing that I learned very quickly is that it's not comfortable. It's not fun. It isn't enjoyable. And it's very likely that you're going to get hurt very quickly, even if you know what you're doing. And so it's not a good plan to just go out into the national forest and think that you're going to be able to survive. Now, I know that there's guys who are, super bushcrafty and all that kind of stuff, and they spent lots of time in the woods, and they can do hand drill fires and in the rain and all that kind of thing. But the problem is what happens when you fall and twist your ankle, and you break a leg or something along those lines. Those injuries happen a lot. And I know that because I carried 36 different crews out into the woods, and I saw a lot of injuries, even in area that's good terrain and stuff. So primarily is going to be bug in. If I have to leave, I'll be coming back shortly, and you're not gonna like the company that you're getting.
So I would encourage you, all of you who are listening or watching, to take a look, do a Google search, or I prefer DuckDuckGo, But do a search on the most common camping injuries, because we're going to be camping in basically in a post SHTF environment, and the number one injury for campers is burns. People starting campfires, handling campfires, putting pots onto the campfire, pulling them off, et cetera, et cetera. But make sure you have plenty of burn first aid. Um, okay, last two. Favorite prep item of all the prepping items you have. What is your favorite?
That's a pretty good one. I would probably say my solar generator. And that is because it enables me the ability to produce electricity, which gives me a lot of different options. So solar panels and a solar generator together. In the society that we live in and the way that everything is structured, even with a modest ability to be able to produce power, I can do a lot of different things. I can charge batteries for cordless tools so that I can make a living if I had to. I can run a refrigerator, during the day or whatever the case may be. I can, you can do a lot of things that a lot of conveniences and a lot of things that make your life a lot easier. Because like I said earlier, living out in the woods ain't any fun. And I mean, it's fun for, first couple weekends or whatever. But once you start pushing along about 30 days or so, it gets a lot less fun.
When you've gone 2 weeks without a shower, all of a sudden it's not glamorous anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So my final question, I notice we do have one or two questions in the chat, and then we're going to bring this to a close. But as far as radio communications, do you have a favorite?
So right now, I like the GMRS radios. The GMRS rules have loosened up quite a bit. And so you can really get a pretty effective GMRS setup for regional kind of, area communication, that kind of thing. I have one for my vehicle. I have one, like a base station, like here at the house, and then I've got multiple different handhelds and stuff. So we can talk out, quite a ways with the setup that we have with that. If I was going to, encourage people, I would try to encourage people to go ahead and get your ham radio set up, because that's the best capability when it comes to that, having your ham license and all that kind of thing. But I've meant to do it multiple times, studied for it multiple times, and never gotten around to getting the test done. And so I'm stuck with the GMRS for now.
Yeah, GMRS, FRS, and there are a couple of frequencies there between those two that overlap.
Yeah.
So licensing is fairly simple compared to the ham.
Yeah, you just sign up.
Yeah. When we talk about ham, one of the things I would like to encourage everybody is don't think of ham as only being the UHF, VHF that you see with the Baofeng UV5R and the Yaesu YA6 and those types of repeater-dependent devices. Ham originally, back in my day, was all shortwave. We're talking high frequency, 3 to 30 megahertz, single sideband for voice, and continuous wave for Morse code. So, and that has skip capability where you have international capability with as little as 50 watts. So, I mean, it's something. So consider getting HF if you're going to get into ham. Let me go back and capture one or two of these questions, and then let's see. So Dragon Slayer says the plan is to leave and go to a farm in the mountains. Take it from an old man. So I'm 70. I know I can't carry a pack like I did when I was on active duty. So I basically have the same pack that I did when I was on active duty. What I did was I bought one of the 2-wheel dollies at Sam's Club. And so I just take my backpack that I used to carry when I was younger, and it's now on a 2-wheel dolly, so that I can kind of pull it on and let the wheels do the work for me. All I have to do is pull it. Now, it does restrict my movement. I can't get over rocky terrain or sandy terrain or anything like that quite as easily as I would have in the past. But, at least it makes me a little bit more mobile. I know I'm not going to carry the same backpack that I did 40, 50 years ago. Hello Tofu has a question for you, JJ.
Sure.
And which knife would you recommend for a female as their first knife?
I mean, honestly, you just whatever really feels good for you, and you kind of go to a store that has them and feel what's most comfortable in the hand. The thing that most people get wrong is the fit of the handle. And so when you're using it, you don't want to have a knife that has any particular hot spots or places where it pushes on your hand when you're trying to make feather sticks or whatever the case may be. So having an important fit in your hand is the most important thing. The blade length doesn't really matter all that much. It can be just 2-3 inches long is plenty long enough for, almost most tasks that you're going to use a folding pocket knife for. So I would just say get something that's comfortable for you. I'm not really a brand snob when it comes to those kind of things. It's more about being practical,
I finally remembered the name of my $200 knife. It's an LT Wright Genesis.
Yeah, good knife.
With a Scandi grind.
Yeah.
But anyhow, and the difference between my LT Wright and that Condor Bushlore, $250 price difference, and they are almost the exact same knife, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I agree. Fit is number one. Find the one. Just go somewhere where you can have a whole bunch of them in your hand and be good with it. So Scrapper says that his first one was a Cold Steel SRK. He's had it for 20 years.
I've got one that I've had 20 years also. It's a very good knife. Yeah.
I've only had mine for about 10. I will tell you, when I was on active duty, I had an old Gerber, and I also had the USMC. And the USMC is probably one of the best knives that I've ever. But my problem is I'm allergic to formaldehyde, and formaldehyde is used to cure the leather in the handle of the USMC knife. So
Interesting.
anytime I use it, I get welts in my hand. Let me see. I have to leave in an old truck if a newer one doesn't work. Okay. Well, that's an area of expertise for JJ. He's kind of my go-to guy on EMP questions and CME questions, and also for nukes. But anyhow, if you have an older truck, I think you're far, far better off.
What was the question?
Those of you who are not, we've got the link there. I'm a distributor as well, but I got into it only because of JJ. So if you're looking for an EMP solution, JJ has a couple of videos out on that about how easy it is. He's also got a link on his YouTube channel, and you can get a discount, and that's what, $50, I believe, for.
Yeah, $50 off if you use the discount code Reality Survival.
So if you're concerned about EMP, make sure you go to his site, get that Reality Survival discount code, and get $50 off on an EMP protective device. I don't see any other questions. So last thoughts, final thoughts, pearls of wisdom, JJ.
Well, you're not going to survive the apocalypse if you don't sign up for my Substack. So no, I do have a Substack. It's realitysurvival.substack.com. And what that is it's a place for me to distribute all the content that I put out, whether it be a written blog post or videos or whatever the case may be. It's free to sign up. You just put your email address in there, and then anytime I put out a video, then I will publish that and it'll come right to your inbox. And I do that so that because YouTube doesn't always notify people when you put videos out and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just sort of an easy way for me to kind of reach out to you. And I won't ever sell your email list or anything like that. It's just for me to communicate directly with you about, whatever we're talking about on YouTube and stuff. So that's and I have a lot of posts, a lot of old lessons and old videos and all that kind of stuff on there that you'll be able to go through and search. I think I have over 1,000 videos now. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can take a look at.
So Jay Creature wants to know, is it true that EMPs will roll over terrain, or is that BS?
No, they do to a certain extent. It all depends on the height of the detonation of the device, and then basically the line of sight for where that device is. The most recent information that I've been able to get was a study put out by EPRI Don't ask me to recall what that the name of that institution is, but basically, the conventional wisdom when people talk about EMPs is they say if one nuke detonates 250 to 300 kilometers above the surface, that it would take down the entire nation's electric grid. That's not correct, though. It would probably take out a few states. So like if it was over Kansas, it might take out Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, maybe some into Colorado, some into Missouri, kind of a 4 or 5 state area, something along those lines. And the good news is that power will probably only be down for a matter of months, maybe 3 to 5 months, instead of 3 to 5 years, which is what the old congressional report said. They've took a pretty hard study. It was a 3-year study. And they looked at the electric grid and they figured out, which components would go bad and all those kinds of things and what they would have to replace. And so that's good news to me. And it's also more of a reason to have one of those EMP shields, because that means that the power is going to come back up. And you want your appliances and your stuff in your house and all that kind of stuff to be able to work when the power does come back up, because everybody else is going to be scrambling to go find a stove and a washer and dryer and a refrigerator and all that kind of stuff. And the supply chain is going to be a mess for a very long time. But if you have your house protected with an EMP shield, then you're going to be ahead of the game. So, and I will be honest with you, I think that the likelihood of an EMP happening is very low. I don't believe that it's very high at all. But the impact of one happening could be pretty bad. So, that's why it might be worth spending a few $100 to, take care of it.
Well, and there's another opportunity for that to happen as well, because as they bring the grid back up, you're going to have a sudden pulse of this power that comes through as the startup.
Mm-hmm.
So if you weren't affected by the original charge, then when they bring the grid back up, you're going to have this first impulse that's going to spike. And so that you could have high susceptibility to it too. That's the reason why you turn all your circuit breakers off when you're repowering up anything, and then bring your circuit breakers back up one at a time. So doesn't look like we have any more questions. And so with that, I'm just going to say that thank you all so much for being here with JJ this evening. JJ, thank you for sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it. Just a couple of real quick comments. Tomorrow night, we do have the nonfiction book club. We're finishing up on Dr. Bradley's book, and we've got like 4 more chapters to go on it. Then we're going to be starting A. Anonymous's survival book starting on Tuesdays after that. This Thursday is the last Thursday of the month, so we're going to be doing the fiction book club. So we're working on volume 3. We'll be discussing volume 3 of Escaping Home.
That's a good series.
Has agreed to come back, and as we go through his books and discuss that. We do have agreement from Stephen C. Smith, the author of the Stonemont series, and he has agreed to come on as a guest and be interviewed. And we're waiting to set up a time with Bill Forstchen, who is the author of the 1 Second After series. So we've got some fantastic people along with JJ that we will be interviewing here in the very near future. So look forward to more exciting Monday evenings. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care. Bye-bye.